What is up, YouTube friends? It is 4:25 on a Friday. Ran to the gas station, got a couple ice cold beers. We're gonna head inside, shave the legs on our Sportster Hardtail kit. Here we go. What we are going to be doing here today, we're going to get rid of our front fender mounts. In order to do that, we have to strip our forks apart. We will machine those off. You guys did not like our lovely reflectors. We're going to add a little bit of length to our tubes. Lastly, we're getting rid of our stock brake and clutch control. Now that we've done away with our electrical switch housings, they just look kind of weird, huge, with these big blunt ends. So we're gonna be swapping those out. Welcome to throttleaddiction.com. Snuck back to the warehouse, which is stock full of all your lovely chopper, motorcycle, Harley, Triumph parts, pieces, all the good stuff. Did a little shopping, grabbed a couple things that we're gonna use to clean up the front end on our Sportster chopper. Fork rebuild kit. We have some fork tube extensions. These are available in 1, 2, and 3 inch. We're going with the 1 inch ones here. And then a set of real simple pared down old school hand controls. Get rid of those big clunky ones and clean things up. So this is what we're going to use to clean up our front end. So with that, we're going to strip the wheel off, get the fork stripped down. And we're just gonna let that dangle somewhere for now. Now we're gonna pull the front tire off so we can start getting our fork legs off. Loosen our pinch bolt. And our axle comes out. So, if you've heard me say it a million times, but we got a spacer on this side, the little guy, spacer on this guy, the big one. We're just gonna put all that back on here, right the way it came off. That way, when we go back together, there's no confusion. Set that bad boy aside, roll our wheel out of here. We're going to start pulling our forks apart. So before we pull our forks out of our triple trees, we're gonna break our top nuts loose. It's just a lot easier. Use the clamps to hold them tight here. If you take your bars off, you can get a socket on this. Break those guys loose. Now we're gonna pull them out of there. Start tearing it apart. A lot of guys will kind of loosen, disassemble everything, and then pull them apart on the bike. I'm just gonna pull them out and then take them apart when we get them out of here. Loosen our top pinch bolt. And we'll loosen our bottom one and get ready, because that is all that's holding them in. There we go. Fork out. Clean off spot, and we will get her tore down so we can send it on in. Our lathe is broken at the moment, so we're going to send them in or run down to the tech, one of the two, throw them on the lathe and spin off our mounts for our fender. We got our fork cap loose here ish. We're going to spin our fork cap off. There is spring pressure there, so make sure that you're keeping a good hand on there, not putting your eyeballs over it. There's your spring pressure. There's the cap. Take our cap off. Here's our springy McSpringington, covered in oil. Now we're going to dump out our fork oil, give her a few squeezes. Now we're going to pop off our dust cap here, walk it around a little time. Ta-da. Keeping everything in order as we take it off. Next is our dust seal. Same thing. Work it around. All right, there's our dust seal. Now, way down inside here, it's metal snap ring that goes all the way around. So there's the end of it. So what you're going to want to do is find where it sticks out closest to the end and just pry it up. Walk it around. And that's free. So the next thing to come out is your fork seal itself. It's way down in there. Don't go digging at it, prying out it. We'll show you how to get that off. First of all, though, we have to take our dampener rod, dampener bolt out. It is a hex head. It works mucho best with an impact. So this has this little copper washer. If that doesn't come off with the bolt, you want to get a O-ring pick, something, and pluck that off there and replace it when you go back together. Got our damper bolt out. We got our retainer ring out here. So now we are going to separate our two fork halves. Again, a lot of people leave this clamped in the bike. Pull it off. One way to do it. Use this much like a slide hammer and pull all that apart. Let it drain out a little bit here. So now what we have is our fork tube, fork upper. This is our fork seal. We're obviously going to be replacing that. You got your bushings down here. This process, I mean, we're just taking them apart to clean these up. If you're replacing fork tubes, if you got leaky fork seals, really the same thing. That is how you separate them. We'll clean this up. There is one more piece way down in here, which sometimes comes off on the end of your dampening rod there. Otherwise, you got to wiggle it loose or take this fancy little booger picker, as my father calls it, and pluck that guy out of there. And just so we remember how it goes, we'll put that right on the end of our dampening rod. There is this little ninja right here is your drain for if you're just changing your fork oil on. We're going to take that off. So now, last step here is taking our reflector off, which is just stuck via lovely double-sided adhesive. So just a matter of peeling that guy off of there. A little more work to do there. Easier said than done. Your other fork is the exact same as this one. So pull that one off, just exactly the same. Disassemble it, just exactly the same. Big thing, kind of keep them separate, keep it lined out. The way you take things apart will make your life easier going back together. So I'm gonna go pop that one off, get her ready to go and get machined. We got our fork lowers all turned down. If you do not have a lathe, pretty much any machine shop would love to help you out with that. Shouldn't cost you too much. If you have a lathe, chuck them up, spin them off, polish them up. Got them as polished as we care to. We were debating powder coating or not. I think we're going to keep them raw, a little polished. We are running a brake on this, so we have a brake bracket. Just got rid of our fender bracket. If you're running a spool wheel up front, getting rid of your brake, you could also spin this guy off, really get a clean look. We are going to start with our left side here and go through our rebuild. So when we pulled these guys apart, we kind of took these parts and pieces off. We got the cap, dust covers, the snap ring. It's pretty important, make life much easier as you disassemble these things, lay everything out kind of as you take them apart. Our Oil seal is the next thing to come off. Just again, laying it in order. We got our spacer, our top bushing, and then down here is our bottom bushing. As far as the bushing goes, not all seal kits will come with these. This one here, we sell on the website, throttleaddiction.com, has all the bushings, all the brass, everything you need. So since we have it, we're gonna go ahead and change it up. So we're just gonna spread her apart a little bit there. Slide that right off, keeping it in order. All right, so now push our damper. The dampener spring. Again, tiny little bushing on this one as well. It's split, so just separate it. And we're gonna put that right up there, right where it goes. We've got everything taken apart as far as we need to go. We're gonna clean all these parts and pieces up, open the seal kit, and get putting them back together. We got everything good and cleaned up. Now we're gonna open up our little kit here. We're just gonna assemble everything backwards as we took it apart. Use a little assembly lube as needed. All right. Stick this little guy back on the end there so we don't forget it later. We're gonna put our bushing on. Our thicker one is the bottom one, so we're gonna start with that guy. Put a little assembly goop. Give her a little spread till it seats nicely. Spin around, get that assembly goo going. Next is our second bushing. Goes on from the top, slides right on down. Next is our spacer. They do give us a new one of these. So far we got our bottom bushing, second bushing, spacer. Next is our oil seal. Rule of thumb is your lettering goes up. Your oil comes in this way, letters top. We're gonna lube that up. It's good to have a bunch of lube up at the taper, the start of the fork here. Just kind of work her over. Slide her on down. So that's as far as we can go on this portion. Now we have to marry it to our fork lower. We're gonna do our brake side first, our left fork first. We've already got this cleaned out, brake cleaned out. Stick rags down in there, get her all clean. The other thing to make sure your dampener rod bolt has a little brass washer, and occasionally, doubt you can see it on this one, but occasionally those get stuck. It's important we get that old one out before we put that bolt in, or else we'll have two on there and eventually she'll start to leak. So we're gonna pop that out real quick. They're quite fun to get at sometimes. Little O-ring pick. We're gonna make sure we got everything good and gooey here. A little's good, a lot is better. Stick this little gentleman out. And oops. Just slide that in till the bottom's out. Now we are going to put in our dampener rod bolt with our new sealing washer. It's good to put some sort of sealant on this bolt, either some U-bond or silicone, whatever makes you happy. We are going to put our dampener rod bolt in, made much easier with the help of an impact. We got our slide married to our lower, but we still don't have our upper bushing and our oil seal in their correct homes. So now is where we're going to employ our slide hammer to beat those down into position so we can get our snap ring in that goes on top of our seal. You can do this with a piece of PVC and a hammer, piece of pipe and a hammer. Works. The slide hammer, seal driver just works better. We got her good and lubed up, and we're going to give her a couple whacks. So it's going in a little difficult, so I'm going to show you a little trick. So rather than try to beat in the seal and that top bushing at the same time, if we pop the seal off, take our little spacer off, take your old bushing, stick that over there, put our spacer in. Now what we're doing, instead of trying to beat the bushing in and the seal in, we're going to beat the bushing down in, pull all this back out, then put our seal in. And you can usually tell when you got it because it changes pitch. So I'm going to pull our spacer back off, pull that old bushing off. Now the important thing is remember to put your spacer back on. So now that we got that bushing in, we are going to put our lubed up seal back in. Now all we're driving is the seal. So we're hitting our oil seal down, driving it down until this full groove here is exposed. This is where our snap ring goes. So we got it pushed down there enough, so we're going to run back to the bench. We're going to finish putting her together here. So this is our pile of things we've already used up out of the kit, got all that. So the next thing is going to be our seal retainer. Goes right over there. Just use your fingers to kind of push her down to get it started. Then take a screwdriver and just kind of walk it around, pushing it down till it clips in all the way around. And if you don't hear that positive clicking, if it doesn't seem like it's in there all the way, that probably means your seal needs to be driven down a little farther to free up that channel that rides in. We've used up all these. We're going to put on our dust seal, give it a little lube. You can use the seal driver to push these on. More often than not, you just give her a little push. Last but not least is our pretty parts. And these, you'll give a little persuasion with something soft, preferably. Like that. Last part they send us in the kit is our cap O-ring. So I'm going to throw that bad boy on here. Our oil drain plug needs reinstalled, otherwise you'll just be dumping your brand new fork oil onto the shop floor. And obviously our spring. Next thing we're going to do, we have these little bad mamma jammas. We didn't feel like putting new fork tubes in. We're just going to reuse these guys, but to give us a little more, just a little more height, we're going to utilize these guys here. ThrottleAddiction.com, I believe 1 inch, 2 inch, and 3 inch. That is not the overall height of this. That is the height that'll bring the front end up. We're just going with the 1 inch guys here. They have an O-ring on this side. We have an O-ring on this side. We're going to thread this right into our fork tube. Fill them up with oil. This threads right into here. Cool thing about these, the diameter here runs on your spacer or on your spring, so there's no need to cut spacers or anything fancy like that. All right. So we got them both started. Now we're gonna go stick these on the bike, and we're actually gonna use the triple tree clamps and our caps to snug these guys down into our fork lowers. Brake tab, left side. We are going to stick this in here and tighten our lower pinch bolt up. Stick the other one in. So now is where you would put in your fork oil. I'm not going to get in a fork oil debate with the internet, so I'll just leave that portion up to you. Look at your service manual. These fork extensions do not change the amount of fork oil you need. If you're just changing these fork extensions, you don't need to worry about that portion. So fork oil filled. With our lower pinch bolts tightened, uppers loose, I'm going to screw in our cap. If you can see here, this is our original fork. This is our fork extension. We have a gap there. We're fighting spring pressure. So now I'm going to put a wrench on our cap and snug all that up. Using a crow's foot because I don't want to take my handlebars off. So as we tighten, the cap has tightened, and now we're actually turning our extension and snugging up that gap. Get those good and snug. We have the cap tight to the extension tightened to our fork lower. We are going to loosen up our pinch bolt and drop it down where we want it and snug it up. And there you have it. We've just extended our fork tube, which brought our front tire elevation up 1 inch. So I'm going to finish up this other side, then we'll get our tire and brake back on, and we're going to change out our controls. Forks are on, extended, nice and shaved. We got rid of the reflectors. Someone really was offended by those reflectors. I mean, I can't say I blame you there. We're going to slam our front wheel back on, stick our caliper on, and then move on to updating our hand controls. You guys have heard me say it a million times, put things in the order they came off will make your life easier. A little bit of grease, anti-seize, something, whatever you want on your bearings so your axle comes out next round. Turns out our axle will not go in because now our fork tubes are longer. So we got to bring her up a little. Probably 1 inch according to the math. Little spacer on the right. And our bigger spacer goes on the left. Flat washer, lock washer, nut, caliper on, long bolt top, short bolt bottom. I mean, you guys weren't wrong. It is looking a little better. I can't lie. I can't argue. All right. Once it's torqued, over on this side, we're going to put our pinch bolt in, tighten that, and we're done with this portion. Moving on to controls.